All right, welcome to part 3 of our 3-part series on the grocery list problem. And in the part 1, we created the grocery list class, which defined the constructor and a couple methods for grocery lists. We completed the grocery item order class, which also created the constructor and a couple methods. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our client class, and the client class is the one that is that's where we're actually going to use these items, and that's where we're actually going to create the objects and run the methods. So the first thing is let's create a new grocery list. So grocery list equals new grocery list. If you remember from the first video, the constructor here doesn't take any arguments, it doesn't take any parameters, it just creates an empty list. So the other thing we're going to probably want to do is create a couple items for our list. So let's create grocery item objects. So grocery item order, let's say we need some cereal. It's a new grocery item order. And the name is cereal. I'm going to want, I like cereal, let's go 5 boxes of cereal, and it's on sale, let's say for $2.15 a box. So that now my list is going to have just this one item, cereal, and that I want to buy 5 boxes at $2.15. Let's go ahead and add, maybe like 2 more items to my list here. Maybe instead of cereal, I want some milk. Getting a bunch of cereal, probably need some milk. Milk. Go 2. And let's say milk is $1.75. Finally, stick with some breakfast here. Maybe I want some eggs at some point. And I only need 1 carton of eggs. And let's say that carton is, let's get the fancy eggs. It's $3.50 for the fancy eggs. All right, so far what we've done is we created a new grocery list object. And these aren't actually in the list yet. All we've done is create them. 3 new, let's just call them items for now, list items, item orders. So far all we've done is create things. So they don't talk to each other at all. If I wanted to, let's actually run this method real quick. Let's run the get total cost method of my list. So let's print this. So list dot get total cost. Let's run this method here. Let's see what happens. 0.0. And the reason why, again, is because my list, even though it's created and I have 3 items, those items aren't actually in my list. So let's actually let's put those items in the list. So we created a .add method. Now I added cereal to my list. And let's also add milk. And then just to see what happened here, let's run another print statement. Now that I've added those items to my list, my total cost should be something different. And it is. It's $14.25, which makes sense if I'm buying 5 boxes of this cereal and 2 cartons of milk. So this represents the original print statement still, when I was printing the cost before I had added my items. Now that I have added my items, the total cost has changed. So let's do the last. We already added it, so add our eggs in. Now my list, has 3 things. Doesn't like my eggs. Oh, because I misspelled eggs here. Okay. Didn't like my eggs. Well, there you go. So now my grocery list, I created the list, I created the items, but they were completely independent. Now I'm adding the items to my list. So let's play around with our different methods and make sure we can do everything we wanted to. We already did the total cost method, but we already did the add method. So actually the grocery list thing, we're good. We've made a constructor, we've used our .add, and we've used our .get total cost. So grocery item orders, though, one of the things we were allowed to do was we were allowed to change the quantity of how many we wanted to have in our list. So let's use the set quantity method to make sure that we can run that. Let's move our egg order here. And let's go ahead and get rid of that. So now, this is printing the total cost after adding the 3 items. Now let's go ahead and change, again, let's say I found some cereal in the pantry. So let's do cereal dot set quantity. And I found 2 boxes of cereal. So now I only want 3. This changes the quantity of cereal from 5 to 3. Now that that's done, run the total cost again to make sure that it changed, because that's a good way of us just confirming that, like, oh yeah, we definitely changed the amount of cereal that we want to buy. So this is the total cost after removing 2 boxes of cereal from the list. So going back through our code, we made our list, we made our items, then we put our items in the list, printed out the cost, and that'll be the first number that happens down here. Then we change the amount of cereal that we wanted, and then we're going to print the cost again, which is going to wind up being that second number. So let's run our program here. So $17.75 was the total cost of my list after I added my items. But after I took out 2 boxes of cereal, which is going to remove $4.30 from my list, which looks like it's working perfectly here, then my total cost of my list is $13.45. So that's it for this video then. So remember that this client class is basically, this is the program that's going to use all the stuff that we did in our other 2 classes. And this is kind of what we talk about when we talk about abstraction, that this client class doesn't need to see how any of this stuff works. I created these objects. I called these different methods like .add and .set quantity, get total cost. I called all these different methods, and I have no idea from this class how those methods are working. And that's the purpose of this, so that when we're making really big, complex programs, we can take a lot of complicated steps, put them into a class by themselves, and then when we're actually just trying to run our program, these are encapsulated and they're protected. So these things that we want to remain private and protected from the client part of the program stay that way. And then we come over to our client side and we basically call those methods and call those constructors, and it simplifies our program a lot, because if you think about the amount of code it would have taken to write all of this, these constructors and everything, if we wrote it all in the same class together, this would have been one really complicated looking program. But instead, we get to just kind of look at the big picture and see what we're doing in terms of general steps when we're on the client side. And that's really a big important thing in programming. And that's what we talk about when we're talking about abstraction.